of the verses that has shaped my attitude towards the work that God has called me to do. It is a verse from the book of Proverbs. And when I started full-time ministry in the early 80s, I discovered that several attitudes shaped the way people who were called by God did the work of God. I was a young man at that time, and I noticed that people did not seem to focus on the work God had called them to do. They were not intentional about their work and their ministry. For example, there were pastors who could travel for long periods of time, and they would leave their flock or the congregation unattended to. I also noted that a number of pastors felt that spontaneous speaking without preparation, was a sign that you were anointed by the Holy Spirit. So sermon preparation, especially among Pentecostals and Charismatics, was not done. You just stand, open your mouth, and trust God to fill your mouth with something, and normally what came out was not good. And then a lot of pastors also specialized at that time, from the late 70s to the early 80s, in what was called blasting people. That means that the strength of the pastor of his ministry was based on how much he can criticize people. So they spent time criticizing their members, their hairstyles, their dress code, and basically being negative against their members. Other pastors just allowed anyone who came to church or anyone who was in town to come and preach for them. And so sometimes a pastor would go to church on Sunday and just call somebody, or another guest pastor comes in and say, "Oh, can you please come and share?" And the person would come and preach. So there didn't seem to be much seriousness in the way people did ministry. Then there was, of course, this troubling situation of sexual immorality, which affected the reputation of quite a few people. And so when I grew up as a young pastor, when I was growing up from the late 70s into the early 80s, I observed these conditions, and I was determined that God will help me not to repeat the mistakes I came to meet, and try to do right and do the right thing. And you know, seeing the wrong thing and doing the right thing is always very difficult, because the wrong thing can be so common and so established that the right thing will be foreign.